government, no government, no individual government, whether in Srinagar or in Delhi, sir, has been able to find a silver bullet magic solution to end cross-border terrorism faced with a country like Pakistan that seems determined to bleed us in Jammu and Kashmir.
They have been bleeding us slowly and steadily. There's nothing new about it. For 40 years, they've been bleeding us. And they will continue to bleed us unless we start thinking and think positively of how to get rid of this.
What do you mean by think positively? In the past, you've been among the advocates for a dialogue with Pakistan. There are others who believe the time for dialogue is long over. Now you need to have some very concrete action, possibly even across the border. There surgical strikes have taken place. There was Balakot. What, according to you, is the positive action that needs to be taken?
Let me tell you, Ajit, I am not in command. And I'm not going to suggest anything to Government of India. They don't need my suggestion. I think they are intelligent enough to decide themselves. But I'll definitely like to tell them, you can't have dual control in Kashmir. Whereas Lieutenant Governor controls security, controls police, he controls the unified command. The state government does not have any say in these things. Imagine, we are elected government. An elected government is never brought into discussions when security matters are discussed. How do you think you will resolve these problems unless you have the state government and the people to sit with you and decide how to get on?
I'm told today there was a security review meeting and Omar Abdullah was not invited for that meeting. Are you saying, therefore, that Omar Abdullah and the National Conference government bear no responsibility?
Ajit, last time when the Home Minister came, only a week ago, he had security meeting. Chief Minister was not in it. It's only this thing, when this time this happened, Chief Minister was called into the meeting. Let's be very straight about it.
But therefore, are you saying the Chief Minister bears no accountability, no responsibility?
It's not a question of responsibility. You have taken him out of the responsibility. It's not we. We still are fighting. We are still bleeding. But the first person who died today in that act was an ordinary horseman, Saeed Hussain, poor fellow. He was the first man who jumped at this terrorist, tried to grab his gun, and lost his life. He said, this is not right, what you're doing. He had that courage and determination to fight these people. We're not running away from it. We are going to fight them.
But the truth of the matter is, these terrorists singled out Hindus, targeted them, and thereby want to drive a wedge between Hindus and Muslims. These were targeted killings, Dr. Abdullah.
Rajdeep, it's not today only. They've always done before also the same thing. They targeted Hindus to create a wedge, which has now been playing heavily in the country. Heavily. We see how much division is taking place between Hindus and Muslims because of Pakistan's actions.
Are you going to put all the blame only on Pakistan today? What about Kashmir itself? The fact is that there is a belief that there were some local Kashmiris possibly also involved in this operation.
Who says no? Who says no? Were they not in when it started in 89? There are people. There will be people. They have to be dealt with.
So you're saying there are elements within the valley who are patronized by Pakistan. There are elements across the border who have entered and bloodied the valley. You are calling for stern action against all of them. You will support any action that Narendra Modi government takes. Am I correct?
Rajdeep, we all want to live in peace and harmony and brotherhood. Take action which will try to bring that brotherhood back in our nation at all costs.
Yes, sir, but you will understand the anger and frustration of people because 35 years have elapsed from the time when you were Chief Minister and Kashmiri Pandits were driven out to today, what we've seen in Pahalgam. There have been repeated attempts made by Pakistan to bloody the soil of Kashmir, and yet nothing seems to change. That anger and frustration, surely you will share of the people of this country.
You know, today, for the first time after 35 years, whole Kashmir has risen up against this. Do you see this? It's a major change. Major change. They don't want anything to do with Pakistan. We are part of the nation called India, and we will remain part of this nation called India.
Do you see, therefore, anger and frustration building up in Kashmir against Pakistan and indeed all those who use the gun to resolve issues? You believe that Kashmir has reached a tipping point?
Sir, Rajiv, haven't you seen the anger in the valley today? Have you ever seen this before? Have you ever seen this? There's a complete shift. And I'm proud of that shift.
Will it last? In your view, will it last? Will it be able to sustain itself?
It will last so long as we live in brotherhood and don't create further communal tension. This will last.
Do you have a message for the Pakistani army chief who only last week said Hindus and Muslims cannot live together and emphasized the two-nation theory? Do you have a message for General Mir today?
I would like to tell the general, we never accepted two-nation theory. God is creator of everyone. Whether he's a Hindu, he's a Muslim, he's a Sikh, he's a Christian, or he's a Buddhist or anything. He's a creator. You cannot divide people on the basis of religion. If religion was to be a dividing factor, then Bangladesh would never have been created.
What is your message to the tourists, sir? You will understand that tourists are fearful now. They are leaving the valley in droves. This was expected to be the big bumper tourist season in the Kashmir Valley. What will you tell those grief-stricken victims as well as those who have... Yes, go ahead.
Tell them, by not coming, you are going to win the battle that Pakistan is trying to win. Come in larger numbers so that we can tell them that you cannot deter us. This is our land, and we are going to come in herds here. Don't be afraid. We have to fight them. And by not coming, you are going to give in to Pakistan acts.
Sir, there are those who are calling today for ministerial resignations, that the Home Minister must be held accountable. There were intelligence lapses. What's your view? Should this be a moment to play politics, or is this a moment to stand united in grief and anger?
I think we should stand united and not try to put fingers at each other. Not. This is the moment when nation must stand together, as they stood together when Kargil war took place. We need that unity today. We need that understanding between each other. Hold each other's hand and show our enemy that we are not going to be defeated. We are not going to accept your hegemony.
Farooq Abdullah, those are very strong words. In a moment, I want to take you to our Hindi network, Aaj Tak, as well. But I appreciate you joining me and speaking so plainly and firmly, sending out a very...
I want to tell you one thing. You know, I didn't give an interview to any media. I gave of this interview because you're one man in this country who stands for truth, who stands for brotherhood, who stands for unity of every man. That is why I gave you this interview, because I'm proud of you.
So
that
that's
you're
very
not
kind.
afraid to
Sir,
use your word.
Sir, my thoughts though today, I'm very kind, sir, but my thoughts today are with the victims, with the families, and with the people who have lost their near and dear ones, as I'm sure are your thoughts and prayers as well, Dr. Abdullah.
Absolutely, Raji. I cannot tell you how much I didn't have the words. I can't even think that such a thing could happen to people who had gone for enjoyment and they had to meet that death. It just shook me. I'm still not normal. I don't think I'll be normal ever, what they have done.
Dr. Abdullah, I understand. I know that your pain and anguish, you told me this morning also, is genuine. You haven't slept all night. You said you were shaken by what's happened, as the nation has been. But as you rightly said, this is a moment also for collective resolve and to send out a firm message to those who try and divide us. Farooq Abdullah, for joining me here today.
We are not going to bow. That
Yes,
they should
sir.
understand.
Yes, sir. Dr. Farooq Abdullah, thank you very much for joining me.
Thank you, Raji. Thank you.
नरेंद्र मोदी माशाल्लाह सऊदी अरब गए हैं तो वहां पर मोहम्मद बिन सलमान से या हबीबी बोल के मिलेंगे और भारत में आकर बोलेंगे कि इनको कपड़े देखकर पहचान।
यहाँ पर आने का मकसद एकमात्र था, ये हिंदुस्तानी पहचान का मामला है। जो संविधान और आइन कहता है उसके हिसाब से मिस इंटरप्रिटेशन ऑफ आर्टिकल 26, जिसके बारे में माननीय सर्वोच्च न्यायालय ने भी कोशिश की थी, सवाल पूछे, उस सॉलिडारिटी के लिए आया। किसी कौम का कोई रहनुमा नहीं होता है, संविधान रहनुमा है।
Weather forecast now. Delhi, maximum 41 and minimum 23 degrees. Mumbai, maximum 30 and minimum 28 degrees. Kolkata, maximum 43 and minimum 27 degrees. Bangalore, maximum 35 and minimum 27 degrees. Chennai, maximum 34 and minimum 27 degrees. Hyderabad, maximum 40 and minimum 25 degrees.
Make your media plan smarter with India Today Live TV on your connected devices. Amplify your brand with 100 million smart internet viewers. To advertise, mail us at sales@aajtak.com.
Presented by Premium Plus by Century Pro Wood. Co-powered by the bold look of Kohler. No stress Phenolics.
Good evening and welcome. At this moment, a high-level cabinet committee on security meeting is deliberating India's response to the attack against Indians in the Kashmir Valley. The critical question, how should India respond to the Pahalgam terror attack? That's my top focus on the news track tonight.
2016 Uri army base attacked. Response: surgical strike. (2019) Pulwama army convoy attacked. Response: Balakot airstrikes. (2025) Pahalgam terror attack. Response: Prime Minister chairs key security meet. India vows strong response. What will India do? That is our big focus on News Track.
We've had a cross-border army covert operation. We've had an airstrike. What are the options this time? It cannot be one of the two options already exercised because the enemy is waiting for that to happen. It has to be something out of the box. It's ultimately for the force commanders to determine what they'll do, but we'll try and give our viewers a sense of the options on the table and war game the potential response. All that and more on the news track tonight. Here are the headlines I'm tracking this evening. Day after 28 civilians are killed in Pahalgam's Jammu and Kashmir. Prime Minister Modi chairs the Cabinet Committee on Security meeting. The meeting has been underway for over 2 hours now. Home Minister Amit Shah visits the terror attack spot in Pahalgam, meets survivors and pays homage to those who lost their lives. Defence Minister Rajnath Singh says India will give a befitting reply. India today accesses details of Pakistan's Pahalgam terror plot. Terrorists used military-grade weapons, digital footprint of attackers traced to Pakistan-occupied Kashmir. 3 military officers among the 28 killed in the terror attack. Lieutenant Vinay Narwal's wife pays a touching tribute. They were on their honeymoon and had got married just 4 days ago. World stands in solidarity with India. US President Donald Trump says PM Modi has his full support. Putin, Meloni and Macron condemn the Pahalgam terror attack. It's been over 24 hours since Pakistani terrorists killed 28 Indian tourists in Jammu and Kashmir. All eyes now are on India's response. What can and will the Modi government do? The Prime Minister is currently chairing the Cabinet Committee on Security meeting at his residence at 7 Lok Kalyan Marg. The key huddle has been underway for over 2 hours now. Last night, in his post on X, the Prime Minister had said, "Our resolve to fight terrorism is unshakable and will get even stronger." The question is, what will this response translate into?
Amit Shah's message of solidarity with the victims of the Pahalgam terror attack. Hours after the dastardly terror attack in Pahalgam, the Modi government swung into action. Prime Minister Modi cut short his Saudi visit and touched down in Delhi this morning, heading straight into a huddle at the Delhi airport with the External Affairs Minister, the NSA and the Foreign Secretary. Meanwhile, Home Minister Amit Shah held high-level meetings in Srinagar. Home Minister Shah also laid wreath at the mortal remains of the 28 innocents who died in the terror strike. As Shah expressed his condolences to the family members, heartbreaking scenes played out as shattered women and children broke down in the presence of the Home Minister. Shah also visited the site of the attack, his chopper landing directly in the meadows where blood was spilled just yesterday. Shah was given a detailed briefing by personnel on ground on how the terrorists opened fire at tourists and then escaped.
This is the location. We have been here since morning and we've seen a lot of activity as far as various security force personnel coming in. You had the NIA team, you had different agencies coming in and taking stock and also gathering evidence, trying to check the crime scene. You also had the Home Minister who was here. He came in a chopper, and so were senior officials of the Home Ministry of Intelligences who were here. In fact, more than anything, it was an attempt by the BJP government, by the Home Minister, to send this message across. It was more about messaging that the country is in fact united in this hour of grief.
Shah also visited the injured at the Anantnag hospital, assuring them of all possible help. Defence Minister Rajnath Singh has reiterated the government's message of a fitting response to Pakistan.
हम सिर्फ उन लोगों तक नहीं पहुंचेंगे जिन्होंने इस घटना को अंजाम दिया है। हम उन तक भी पहुंचेंगे जिन्होंने पर्दे के पीछे बैठकर हिंदुस्तान की सरजमी पर ऐसी नापाक हरकतों की साजिशें रची हैं। ऐसी हरकतों का जिम्मेदार और इसके जिम्मेदार लोगों को आने वाले कुछ ही समय में जोरदार तरीके से नजर आएगा। मैं देशवासियों को आश्वस्त करना चाहता हूं।
Jammu and Kashmir CM Omar Abdullah attended the funeral of a local who was also shot dead by the terrorists. The Chief Minister will chair an all-party meeting tomorrow to address the massive tourist exodus from the valley.
उन लोगों के साथ ताज़ियत और हमदर्दी का इजहार जिनके ऊपर और जिनके साथ ये सदमा बीता है, और मैं यहाँ इन सबको यकीन दिलाने आया हूँ कि इस मौके पर हुकूमत इनके साथ खड़ी है और जितना हम इनके लिए कर सकेंगे हम कर लेंगे।
The Cabinet Committee on Security, chaired by Prime Minister Modi, saw top ministers in attendance, and it's wait and watch for now as to how the government chooses to respond to Pakistan's bloody provocation. With Mir Fareed in Pahalgam, Bureau Report, India Today.
I want to go across live to Mir Farid, who joins us from Pahalgam. He's been reporting on the aftermath of this dastardly terror attack. Mir, we know that security forces are hot on the heels of the terrorists who they think orchestrated the attack on Pahalgam. Have they been able to establish contact? Do they have a good sense of where these terrorists are? Because very likely that they're split in different directions. So how is this operation coming along?
Yes, Rahul, absolutely right you are when you say that they could have split in different directions, because initially the inputs that were coming in suggested that there were 3, but I can confirm to you based on multi-agency inputs that there were at least 6 to 7. So once they carried out this attack, they may have spilled or in fact split in different directions of 2 to 3 per group. And as we have been reporting since morning, that area, once they carried out the attack, the foliage, the mountains, the terrain is such that they could have easily slipped into that particular area or different areas, and then in fact they had a clear escape plan, because this area was recceed. They knew that they are attacking an area where there is no security force presence around, so they carried out the attack and they also had an escape plan. That is what our sources tell us. But yes, they're hot on their heels. Multi-agency effort right now, be it the army, commandos, CRPF, police, all of them are together in this. And when Amit Shah, the Home Minister, landed there, obviously on-spot directions have gone from him of an absolute free hand to the security forces in this scenario. But at the same time, there are also questions on the security lapse, something that we have also been discussing. So this is something that has multiple angles, and the government wants to ensure that each angle is taken care of, because this is a security lapse in many ways, an intel failure of massive magnitude, considering that it was not 1 or 2 but a big group that was moving through the Pahalgam jungles. And in spite of that, this very sensitive area with so many tourists cut off was kept unmanned and unprotected. So all these angles are being taken care of, but already there has been a spurt in anti-terror operations post the clear directions, because we have an operation happening in Kulgam where a top TRF commander could be hiding, and then you also had an operation in Udi where 2 infiltrators armed were shot dead. In Bandipora there is an operation. So multiple operations right now to take care of the security situation, that too before the Amarnath Yatra, because that is the next massive challenge to protect, because if inputs are to be believed, while they carried out this attack, their main target is Amarnath Yatra, and if they can target civil targets, tourists, obviously they can easily target yatris. So that is the next big challenge, and probably in the coming days you will have specific meetings targeted at ensuring foolproof security arrangements, multi-tier security for the Amarnath Yatra. Rahul?
Mir Farid, for your reportage, thank you. We'll come back to you for more later. Gaurav Sawant joins us. Gaurav, very crucial CCS meeting underway. Explain to our viewers what's likely to be discussed, because from what I understand, this is where the political leadership will give sanction to the military for different kinds of options. Those options will be discussed, detailed, thrashed out, and then a clearance will come through. So explain your understanding of this meeting and its significance and the likely outcome.
Rahul, this is, as you well know, the highest decision-making body in the country when it comes to any issue, any matter military or security related, the Cabinet Committee on Security. And the Prime Minister is being given inputs by all stakeholders. So the Home Minister, who's just come from Kashmir, is giving details about what he saw and what he was briefed about the situation on ground. The External Affairs Minister with the external ramifications. This is where they deliberate and then decide what the next course of action would be. Defence Minister Rajnath Singh gave an indication when he delivered the Marshal Arjun Singh Memorial Lecture, when he said there will be consequences not just for those who carried out the terror attack, but also those who were behind the scenes, पर्दे के पीछे रहकर जिन्होंने किया, उनके खिलाफ भी कार्रवाई होगी, or words to that effect is what he said. But if you go by past precedents, Rahul, 2016, when the terror attack took place at the Uri base, India's response time was 10 days. In Pulwama, the response time at Balakot was 12 days. So whether the government waits 10 days, 12 days, a fortnight or a month, it will very clearly depend on when the government thinks it's best to teach Pakistan's military jihad complex a lesson, and a lesson which will be lasting. So will the response be kinetic or non-kinetic? A combination of both or more is something that will be deliberated upon, and whether initially Pakistan will be given an opportunity to come clean and then action taken, because the government does follow a policy which will hold the government in good stead even internationally.
Okay, Gaurav Sawant, we'll come back to you once we know what the CCS has decided. There's likely to be a MEA briefing as well, so we'll track all of that. There's a clear Pak imprint on the Pahalgam terror attack. Top intelligence sources have told India today that terrorists carried military-grade weapons. They had helmet-mounted cameras, and they were in touch with handlers in Pakistan, Munish Pandey and Ajit Negi, with the details.
These are the faces of terror. Probe agencies have released these sketches of the terrorist. Forensic analysis and survivor testimonies have revealed shattering details. Terrorists used military-grade weapons, suggesting that the attackers were well-equipped and well-trained. They used advanced communication devices, indicating coordination and external logistical support. The precision and planning of the attack points to involvement of trained handlers, not local amateurs. Intelligence intercepts point to direct links between the attackers and Pakistan-based operatives. Digital footprints of the attackers have been traced to safe houses in Muzaffarabad and Karachi. Pahalgam terrorists had clear targets in mind. They chose Baisaran Valley deliberately, a non-motorable area, knowing that there will be no place for tourists to hide and that rescue will take time. Were government officials and families primary targets of terrorists? Sources have told India today that it was specific operation, as some government officials and families were on a group vacation in Pahalgam. Terrorists checked identity cards before killing victims. Some government officials are also among those injured. 3 judges of Kerala High Court are also among the survivors. They left Pahalgam hours before the attack. India has vowed a strong and befitting response.
और हम सिर्फ उन लोगों तक नहीं पहुंचेंगे जिन्होंने इस घटना को अंजाम दिया है। हम उन तक भी पहुंचेंगे जिन्होंने पर्दे के पीछे बैठकर हिंदुस्तान की सरजमी पर ऐसी नापाक हरकतों की साजिशें रची हैं। मैं इस मंच से देशवासियों को आश्वस्त करता हूं, घटना के मद्देनजर भारत सरकार वो हर कदम उठाएगी जो जरूरी और उपयुक्त होगा।
All eyes now are on India's response. What will it be and when? With Munish Pandey and Manjeet Negi, Bureau Report, India Today.
This is something, frankly, that only military commanders, based on political green signals, will actually be deciding. But since there's so much curiosity, I've got some very sharp military and strategic minds to try and make sense of India's options and the likely escalation ladder if we go out and strike against Pakistan. I'm joined on this broadcast by Lieutenant General Syed Atta Hasnain. He's been General Officer Commanding of 15 Corps in Srinagar. We've got SP Waid. He's been the Director General of Police in Jammu and Kashmir. I have Colonel Ajay Shukla, Strategic Affairs Expert. Brahma Chalani, one of India's best known national security experts. And I have Manoj Joshi, Distinguished Fellow at the Observer Research Foundation. General Hasnain, I'll come to you first. We've had a cross-border terror counter-strike, covert operation. We've had an airstrike. We know that it's highly likely that the handlers of the ISI would have cleared out whichever terrorists were in launch pads or in training camps already. Given the current state of play, as best as you can, explain to those watching at this moment India's potential response options.
Thank you, Rahul. Thank you for inviting me for the program. And I start by expressing my deep regrets for the unnecessary loss of life. But to come back specifically to your question, first of all, Rahul, you are also a part of the military community. And I want to make one thing clear. The Indian Army does not discuss offensive options. Not publicly, not even privately. But having said that, there is a way of discussing this, and that is to look at what your objectives can. You are not going to be looking at the targets, but definitely I'm sure the CCS would discuss what the objectives should be. Should the objectives be such that you send out a message of deterrence, that you do an act as large as one which will deter Pakistan from doing something in the future? That would mean something very, very big. The second part is to send a message. The messaging part was done at a lower level during the surgical strikes, and in the escalatory ladder, you can say that a slightly higher notch was implemented in the Balakot strike. But both were not intended for deterrence. Both were intended to message. The messaging was very clear. You strike and I will strike you back. I will strike you back at a bigger scale, but I will strike you back. It was not meant for any aspect of deterrence at all. The last is the objective, which should be seen in the light of the impact and the response from Pakistan thereafter. That means, at the end of the day, an option in which those taking a decision decide that going to war even as a result of the impact of our action would be acceptable to us. This is the spectrum that we are looking at in terms of objectives. Take your pick from this. I'm sure the CCS would have discussed all this today and decided, and we'll hear about it in the days to come.
Colonel Ajay Shukla, whatever we do, there may be a Pak response. We've had an Army Covert Special Para Forces strike. We've had an Air Force strike. Without getting into technical details, your broad understanding of India's options, the likely response, General Hasnain talking of a very, very big strike, creating deterrence. How should India create deterrence after what happened at Pahalgam?
Well, it's actually quite simple. You create deterrence by creating the forces to strike at a particular place and the decision-making machinery that gives it the go-ahead and so on. But I don't think any of us should hold our breaths waiting for decisions from the government. Both this and the last government have faced this problem of cross-border terrorism. It has had sort of numerous examples of soldiers getting beheaded, their heads being taken away and so on. And every single time, whether it is after Uri or after Pahalgam or you name the place, we have, at the end of the outrage that has been perpetrated upon us, we are left with no options apparently that can actually take revenge, go and strike or create deterrence. So I don't see why this particular incident should be different from the last. If the government has done sort of the creation of options and created the mechanism that will impose a cost on the Pakistani side, well, now is the time to let it go ahead.
You know, the fact is, Manu Joshi, that Inder Kumar Gujral, when he was Prime Minister, he wound down the raw assets that we had inside Pakistan. That entire covert program shut down, restarted after Prime Minister Modi came to power. And that's what Ajay Shukla is saying. If you got some assets inside Pakistan, this is the time to show. If Ajit Doval, the IB chief, the RAW chief have built up these capacities, this is when, like the Mossad would do, like the Israelis would do, this is when you bring your best boots to the table. Manoj?
Yeah. Well, that is just the intelligence option is just one of the options. There are other options as well, meaning, I'd like to point out to you that the General Hasnain said that Balakot and Uri were basically messaging and not deterrence. My point is, what is deterrence? What will it take to deter Pakistan? If we can find that out, then we should do that. We should deter Pakistan.
How do you think we can deter Pakistan? What does deterrence look like to you?
You need to take politico-military options. See, Balakot and Uri did not help because we've been having killings continuously since then. Continuously. I can give you all the lists and of what has been happening in Jammu and Kashmir. So the politico-military options, we have found, for example, that the Financial Action Task Force was very useful. We could not get Pakistan to punish Hafiz Saeed, Ziaur Rahman Lakwi, and Sajid Mir. But because of the FATF, the Pakistanis suddenly woke up and they put them in prison. Now, what they're doing in prison, I don't know. But this is the only instance where the perpetrators of a much worse tragedy of Mumbai in 2008 have finally been punished in 2022. So what I'm trying to get at is that the FATF may not be the best option, but it may be one of the viable options. But of course, we cannot remove the military. Is the viable military option? Whatever you do has to be credible. Clearly, Balakot and Uri were not credible. And so we need to devise something. And as you said earlier yourself, that this is something which our security managers need to figure out and think about it. Our security managers, our diplomats, it's their task. We know what the public of the country knows what it wants. It wants deterrence. It wants Pakistan to lay off.
Okay, Brahma Chelani, what can that deterrence look like? Manoj Joshi says Balakot and Uri weren't enough. I disagree to the extent that at least for a while it made the Pakistanis back off and there wasn't this big a terror attack like there was with the kind of frequency there was previously. But yes, it wasn't permanent deterrence. If we need, can there be permanent deterrence? If there is to be permanent deterrence, what does the military need to do?
Well, let's look at the larger picture. In terms of economic and military power and other material measures, India dwarfs Pakistan. Yet the much smaller Pakistan continues to bleed India. Pakistan makes up for the power asymmetry with India through stronger political will. That's where India has been lacking, the political will. And another area where India has been lacking is a consistent Pakistan policy. We have had successive governments in India who have failed to pursue a consistent Pakistan policy. Every prime minister who takes office seeks to make peace with Pakistan. Vajpayee did that, Manmohan Singh did that, Modi also did that. He landed in Lahore unannounced. We have not had a consistent Pakistan policy in a long, long time. In fact, the country is taken through a roller coaster ride on Pakistan. And after every major terror attack, we have the same debate before things return to business as usual. You can only deter Pakistan if you are willing to impose sustained costs on Pakistan. Sustained costs.
What does that mean? De-jargonize that. What does permanent deterrence and sustained costs mean?
See, a one-off kinetic operation like the Balakot airstrike is not going to be sufficient. It may, even if it's a major operation, even if it delivers a major blow to Pakistan, can only buy peace for some time. Sustained cost means you have to use all weapons at your disposal, not just kinetic. All other non-military options also have to be employed on a sustained, continuing basis. And that requires consistency in approach, which is where India's weakness lies. It's compounded by the fact that India has a risk-averse culture. India has a reactive culture. We are not proactive. We respond to aggression. Same thing happened when China encroached on Indian borderlands in Ladakh. We were caught napping. And why are we caught napping again and again? This is a
okay, but you're saying we haven't been doing very much. There have been so many reports in Pakistani media of different terrorists being bumped off by unnamed assassins. And the Pakistanis have been criving a lot about that. So it's not as if we've been sitting completely on our backsides. The fact is, you're saying that there isn't permanent deterrence, and that I agree with. I want to spend some time with the former Director General of...
You're giving credence to to Pakistani.
No, I'm saying I don't know who killed them, but it's good that these terrorists are dying. I don't know who killed them, and there's no way of knowing that. But SP Waid, just the fact that there is this big meadow, very beautiful meadow, one of the prominent tourist sites in the Pahalgam area, and there's no police personnel there. There are no CRPF, no BSF, no army. Does that appear to you to be odd that you've got this big area, so much tourism concentrated there, and no security forces around?
Rahul, in fact, the question you are asking, I spoke to 2-3 officers of that area. How's that there was no presence of armed policemen in a tourist place, which is blocked by so much of tourists. So one of the reply I got from one officer that, sir, there is an army camp nearby, so area security is ensured by that. And then there is CRP, some CAPF patrol twice a day in the morning and evening, but no permanent presence of the armed policemen. So I found it very, very difficult to digest. I have remained DGP, and a place like this. Number one, I also would like to know how come a private person has this place? Who gave him permission? What mechanism was devised to ensure security of tourists visiting this place, which has no access by road, and it's only by ponies and by track people go there. So who is this private person who had managed this place? I think all these aspects need to be looked into.
Atas, then, sir, does this not seem particularly odd? I am told that there is an army camp, say about half an hour, 40 minutes of a trek away, but the fact that there's no police, no army, just doing. One is you have a patrol mission that goes by. That's one thing, but I would expect in a place like this with so much concentration of tourists for some police personnel to be present on the ground.
Rahul, you are absolutely right. There's no doubt about what you're saying is absolutely correct. But I'm sure that there will be an investigation and subsequently the facts will emerge. I can only speculate and tell you. To my mind, even in the time of Vaid-Sahib, the degree of coordination between the army, police and the CRPF was intense. Now, I may like to remind everyone, this is the launch pad, this is the Adam base for the Amarnath Yatra. When you look at Pahalgam, the areas around it, 2-3 kilometers either side of Pahalgam, is the security zone.
Yes.
And it's about time that the Amarnath Yatra starts on 3rd of July. It's about time that we started looking at the domination of these areas. Now that brings me to this term called domination. And someone as a professional, as Vaid-Sahib, would agree with me, the term domination is the most important terminology in Kashmir. If you don't dominate these areas, you will leave them open to be occupied by terrorists. I remember a general officer commanding of mine who used to point the light of his laser on a map and tell me, have we ever sent a patrol here? And I would say, what is the requirement of sending it there? There are no terrorists there. And he would correct me and say, where there are no terrorists, do domination there so that no terrorists come there.
No, but does that mean then that at some level there was a sense of complacency that people in the armed forces started believing the idea that normalcy has returned, that tourism is back, that nothing will go wrong? Because oftentimes we just tend to get complacent, and which is where problems start from. And the fact that there's nobody, it's not as if we had a couple of policemen and they got overpowered. We had nobody there, zero, zilch, nada.
Rahul, that would not be correct on my part. This is a very strong word we use, complacency. I don't think the armed forces or the police forces are ever complacent. It can be just a lack of efficiency, the inability to understand or comprehend. We have been there for the last 35, 36 years doing these operations. Passing it on is a very important aspect. And from time to time, people must continue to learn that this whole area of domination, this whole aspect of domination is such an important operation which must continue. It's such a boring, such a repetitive operation, but it must continue. And that is something I'm sure in the investigations people will bring it out.
Okay, Ajay Shukla, I think we're talking about different things here. One is to go and dominate heights or mountains or forests where you anticipate that terrorists may come. You want your patrols to go through those areas so the terrorists know that it's not safe for them. The other is there's a big meadow where 1,000+ tourists come every day. They trek all the way up. The terrorists seem to know that the closest base is half an hour, 40 minutes away. The road is not motorable, so nobody can come quickly. They can do what they want. They have time. So the terrorists have wargamed this through. It seems, given the fact that there was no police personnel there, that the security forces didn't do that. I'm not expecting the army to be deployed over there because there's no post, but at least basic law enforcement should have been there, don't you think?
Yes, Rahul. The problem is it's always easier to be wiser after the attempt. We're now discussing an operation that took place yesterday, all the elements of which have left the place, and all we have is now a certain bunch of discussion points wherein the various TV channels around the capital, we will discuss what we did wrong, and we must have stable deterrence, and we must have this, and we must have that. The fact is, we do not do a very good job of putting in place the resources that are required. Instead, we believe that by deflecting the issues and the public discussions that should be underpinning all of our actions, we just sort of pull the wool over our own eyes, really. We sort of make it sound as if this was just a one-off and it'll be back to business as always. People will come and go, terrorists will get wiped out. It doesn't happen like that. You've got to do a sustained job of keeping the terrorists in their place. You've got to make sure that their checks and balances are all in place. You have to sack people who do not deliver at sort of important moments. No. And then we can talk about, we're doing our best to put deterrence.
No, but this is... Sure, but this is not a lapse. I'll explain the difference. Lapse would be if, say, there's a road opening party in that area, or for example, you have a patrol party in that area, and they come every day, but they didn't come that day. This is just a situation, Manoj Joshi, where we just didn't feel the need to deploy personnel in that area, which means A, it's a massive intelligence failure, B, I don't know what the local commanders and the police and the army are thinking, but they really should have. In hindsight, it looks like the most obvious thing to do, but what do you think they were thinking when they decided not to have anyone there?
I definitely think that this was a failure of assessment. One of the important part, the most important part of intelligence often is assessment. That whatever intelligence you're getting, you've got to assess it right, and I think the assessment was incorrect. You see, but in attenuation, I would also like to point out that, look, in 2022, a total of 30 civilians were killed in Jammu and Kashmir. In 2023, 12. In 2024, 31. Now, in 2025, in one day, we've had 28. So what I'm trying to say is, with these very low figures, there was a sense of complacency. There was a sense that, things have reached a point that we have reached a, qualitative shift has occurred, and things are now fine. Tourism is functioning. Even in 2011, we had that situation when, I went as a tourist and visited and stayed in Kashmir for a while. But you knew that to an extent, it was the forbearance of the terrorists. The terrorists held back because they wanted to please their Kashmiri links. In this case, very clearly, the terrorist attack has been completely, has blasted the Kashmiri links. They have trashed their Kashmiri links. The Kashmiris are extremely unhappy. This has been a disaster. This has turned out to be a disaster for Kashmir.
But why would they do that, Brahma Chalani, given that the terrorists depend on OGWs, overground workers, terrorist sympathizers called Hamdards for support? When you attack tourists in this fashion, you cripple the local economy, which by some estimates is worth 21,000 crore rupees just around tourism. There were 2.4 million tourists who came, according to figures put out by Omar Abdullah. That's a very big number in terms of just sheer number of tourists and in terms of the economic value that they produce. By attacking that, you're not just attacking these tourists, you're also attacking tourism in Kashmir. Why would the terrorists do that, you think?
That's because the terrorists behind yesterday's massacre are not local people. After all, why would they seek to undermine the local economy, which relies on tourism for sustenance? And that is also why there is such anger in Kashmir Valley against the slaughter of yesterday. For the first time in the Kashmir Valley, people have come out on the streets in solidarity with the victims and against the perpetrators of this terror attack. But I think we have to look beyond the law and order issue. Of course, we need to do whatever is necessary to deter terror attacks. But terrorism cannot be effectively contained if it's treated solely as a law and order issue that requires more and more security or manning every dominant height, for example. To regard terrorism as a law and order issue is to do what the terrorists want, to sap your strength. You keep deploying troops everywhere. No amount of security can stop terrorism if the nation is reluctant to impose sustained costs on the sponsors of terrorism. So as Mr. Modi himself said in November 2022, he said there must be a cost imposed upon countries that support terrorism.
So
now he has to translate his own words into action.
Absolutely. And therefore, there's that much more pressure on the Prime Minister and on the Home Minister on now walking this talk and delivering something which makes people feel that we have been able to avenge this terror attack. I'm joined by Piyush Mishra. The Cabinet Committee on Security meetings just got over. Amit Shah is still inside, but the others, Rajnath Singh and the other officials have now left 7 Lok Kalyan Marg. Are you picking up anything at all? I'm told that there will be a press conference by the MEA after 9 p.m. tonight.
Well, certainly, Rahul, what we are now told is that there will be a press conference and that will happen soon after this meeting, which has now come to an end. The meeting went on for more than 2.5 hours, in which all the members of CCS were present, including Home Minister Amit Shah, Defence Minister Rajnath Singh, NSA Ajit Doval was also there, Foreign Affairs Ministry Secretary Vikram Misri was also part of this, Jaishankar was also part of this. And after this meeting, which has now come to an end, what we are told is that Ministry of External Affairs is now going to brief media about the current development. And as we are speaking, Rahul, Home Minister Amit Shah is still inside, and remember that he's the man with whom Prime Minister is in touch with since the time attack has happened in Pahalgam. He was also directed by Prime Minister to go there at the site, and Home Minister not only held a series of meetings in Srinagar, but he also visited the spot where the attack took place. He also met with the bereaved families. After that, he is now back in national capital. He also took part in CCS meeting, and after the meeting, which has now come to an end, what we're told is that he is still inside, and most likely the one-to-one talks are going on between Home Minister Amit Shah and PM Narendra Modi. He is most likely, is briefing Prime Minister about the current situation of Jammu and Kashmir.
Piyush Mishra for joining us. Thank you. We'll track, and interestingly, it's a Ministry of External Affairs briefing. So it's not the MHA briefing, it's not the Army briefing, which they will after the operations get over. What do you think, Manoj Joshi, of the choice of the Ministry of External Affairs to do this briefing? Sending a message to Pakistan, sending a message to the international community as well?
Absolutely. I think that's the first stage. Very clearly, in the politico-military strategy, the political part of it is coming first. And I think, as I told you earlier, it's not unimportant. Right now, we have a very friendly situation, for example, with the United States. The United States still has an enormous amount of clout in the international system, as they have made evident in recent times. If we can persuade countries like the United States, Europe, Japan, to support us on this issue, I think we can squeeze the Pakistanis. Meaning, as I gave you the example of the Financial Action Task Force, I think that should be revived, and Pakistan needs to be squeezed.
General Hasnain,
on this
you know,
issue.
in the conversation between Prime Minister Modi and American President Donald Trump, it appeared that America offered all possible help to India. For my understanding, you know, is it possible for America, for example, to jam Pakistan's radar systems, to disable their air defense, so that India can go in and launch a success? Given our current relationship, is that something India can bank on, you think, and can America deliver?
See, Rahul, historically, the relationship of the United States with India has been, well, very, very good. But with Pakistan, it's not been bad either. And you know the geostrategic location of Pakistan, how important it is for the United States. We've all assisted in our times. And therefore, to expect anything very proactive from the United States, even in Trump 2.0, to my mind, is too large an expectation. And
you think it's too large an expectation? Let me put that same question to Brahma Chalani. Can we count on America to, for example, when the Indian attacks happen in whatever form and shape they do, to disable Pak air defense, to jam their radars, to ensure that our machines can go through, our fighters, whatever attack ultimately happens, they can succeed without that much of a pushback from Pakistan?
Well, the reaction from the Trump administration, from the highest level, from the president himself, the Secretary of State, you know, the other senior officials of the administration on the Pahalgam attack, they've all come out in a very forthright manner, in a manner that we did not see when the Biden administration was in office, when there were acts of terror in India, or the way Biden stayed mum on the Chinese encroachments on Indian lands in Ladakh. He didn't say a word for the entire 4 years that he was in office. And in a sign of renewed counterterrorism cooperation, the FBI last week arrested a Khalistan militant accused of involvement in multiple terrorist attacks in India. So clearly, the relationship between the US and India is bouncing back from the Biden era setbacks. The drift is over, and Vance's trip to India signals a new chapter in the bilateral relationship. It's clear that the terrorists chose J.D. Vance's visit to maximize the impact of their terror attack.
So you think there's a new phase in the relationship? Ata Hasnain disagrees. Let me put that question to Ajay Shukla for his sense on whether Delhi can count on DC to help mount this counter-offensive. They don't have to join the offensive, but help with the electronic systems. Colonel Shukla?
There is, as we had mentioned, a sort of a set of preparations and tasks that we have to do, a set of conditions that we have to create in our operational areas, and then having done these and put in place the wherewithal, we then wait for the moment to react. This is not difficult to understand. This is, and our military officers and so on are extremely competent people. But I don't think for a moment that we actually go ahead with a lot of these tasks. We fall short. We say that we'll do it later, and then later never comes.
No, but this is the moment. Manoj Joshi, for all the 56 inch ki chhati, ghar mein ghush ke marenge, we'll give a muh-tod jawab. This is the time. There hasn't been a terror attack of this nature in a very long time. Definitely not under the Modi Sarkar. Definitely not on tourism. Therefore, if the Prime Minister, the Home Minister are truly outraged, this is the time to strike.
Absolutely. I have no doubt in my mind. And my point is that Balakot and the Uri attack, so-called surgical strikes, was simply not enough. They did not deter Pakistan one bit. In 2 months after the Uri strike, there was an attack on the Nagrota cantonment, where the 16 Corps is headquartered. 10 soldiers died, and we didn't react. And this has been a pattern. Sunjuwan, cantonment attack, soldiers' families died in 2018. We didn't react. And we have not been reacting. I mean, look at last year when the tunnel attack took place, where the workers in the tunnel were killed in Gandarbal. We haven't reacted. We didn't react to the Riyasi, where 9 pilgrims were killed last year. So what I'm trying to say is that you need deterrence, and deterrence must be credible. Meaning you must do
but there is a risk, and I want to warn all our viewers about that, and I want SP Ved to talk about it. You know, it's good that the government is signaling very clearly that there will be heavy consequences in Pakistan, but what the armed forces would not want, Mr. Ved, is that pressure be made that aaj karo, kal karo, parso karo. You need to allow the military commanders the leeway to decide when to strike. You don't want this national clamor to build in a way that the armed forces are then under pressure, because they need raw operatives on the ground to scout out the areas, to see whether the targets that are going to be attacked are actually present there or not. You need to do your due diligence. You don't want to go in and throw a punch in the air.
Absolutely, Rahul. The operational part should be left to the field commanders, the chiefs of all the three forces. And I think that's what is being discussed today. The political leadership will lay down what could be the options and what could be the cost. After all, Pakistan is going to respond. So all options have to wait and let them have the freedom when and how to choose.
No, I want General Hasnain to talk a bit about this, because this is important as you think about when India's response comes, for people to have patience. And while political signal will be given in the CCS meeting, and that's already happened, to allow for the army chief, the CDS and the troops in Northern Command the freedom to choose when and where to attack and how to attack. Don't put them under pressure.
See, Rahul, this is something which is not a knee-jerk reaction as such. This is something well thought out. And even in normal peacetime, while we have been at war virtually for the last 36 years, all these contingency plans are there. It's not that the chief and his advisors have to now put their heads together to decide what the options are and what has to be selected, etc. These are all available and easily. The only thing is that you have to look at the contingency and match the reality to the contingency. There is one thing which I would always like to warn people about, and that is, so far India has only targeted the terrorist infrastructure. But the deep state in Pakistan is not necessarily consists of only the radicals who are also terrorists in many ways. The deep state consists of the ISI itself. The deep state is the Pakistan Army, elements of the veteran community of the Pakistan Armed Forces. All of them are stakeholders in the deep state. What aspects of the deep state can be targeted? Because if you want to make a difference, if you want to hurt him, you have to hurt the deep state. So that is why I would say, are we willing to actually target resources of the Pakistan Armed Forces, which will invariably evoke a response? Are we willing to do that?
No, but that could lead to war. So you attack, say, Pak Army serving officers or retired officers who work with the ISI. Absolutely. You succeed in that, Pakistan wants to respond, and then you have to manage the escalation ladder that could potentially lead to a far higher degree of conflict.
Absolutely. That's an option which you have to consider.
Do you think we should go for it, Brahma Chelani? Go after not just these random terror camps or launch pads, go after the Pak Army officers like the Americans and the Israelis did with General Suleiman of Iran?
General Hasnain has raised a very relevant point, that unless you do not take on the Pakistani deep state, you may not be able to deter Pakistan effectively. But I think there's a more important point that we must keep in mind. India must fight Pakistan on Pakistani soil rather than fight Pakistan on Indian soil. Thus far, we have been trying to fight Pakistan on Indian soil. This strategy has to change. We have to take the fight to Pakistani soil. And why not use the same means as Pakistan does, unconventional means? Why are we only talking about kinetic means? Sure. Direct military action will come with risks, and its deterrent effects are likely to be more limited than unconventional strikes. Unconventional strikes can be staged recurrently. To take the battle to the Pakistani territory India needs to be less reactive and more proactive. And that also demands that India should be willing to continue to impose costs on a sustained basis. Only then will there be sufficient deterrence created against any further Pakistani terror attacks on Indian soil.
Okay, so we've had an important discussion. I don't want to get too much into technical details because you don't want to be giving ideas to anybody watching elsewhere. But the fact is, as General Hasnain said, the options are well known. Now it's for the political establishment to signal which of those options they want to implement. And once that option is picked for the implementation of the options from the available choices about where to target, who to target and how to target for the armed forces to decide that, make no mistake, there will be an attack and there could possibly be a response. Clearly, Pakistan itching for a fight. We'll track all that happens very, very closely. I want to thank our guests for joining us on the news track. The Pahalgam attack has sent shockwaves around the country. In a gesture of solidarity and mourning, the match between the Sunrisers Hyderabad and Mumbai Indians saw both teams observe a minute's silence before the first ball was bowled. Players also sported a black armband as a mark of respect. Today's match will see no extravaganza. The BCCI has decided there will be no cheerleaders and firecrackers as the players stood shoulder to shoulder with each other. The message on the side screen read, "Let's all stand for peace and humanity." The two captains also extended their heartfelt condolences to the families of the bereaved.
I would like to pass on the message and our condolences to the families who lost their loved ones in the terror attack. I strongly condemn, and we as a team strongly condemn this cowardly attack, and we stand behind all of them and with the nation.
It's been heartbreaking to see the scenes at Pahalgam. So, from all of us as Sunrisers, but also Aussies who always feel really welcome here in India, our heartfelt condolences go out to the victims and their families and their friends, and we're all thinking of those affected.
What happened at the IPL is symbolism. It's time to press the substance into action. Let's see what the Prime Minister and the armed forces do. Make no mistake, there will be a deadly response. We're slipping into a break. We'll have more for you when we come back on the other side. Stay with us.
Motorola Edge 60 Fusion. Edge out the ordinary.
While covering news, there is no room for fluff. No distractions. No dodging the truth. No blanks, no misfires. Just sharp, fearless journalism.
Every story, every debate, every question, straight to the point.
Next year, that'll be me.
Stop, gotta play, I drive to perfection, yeah, I bet you know the way I strive. I'm on the edge out of the ordinary, heading for the prize light. I'm in the stars and I know it cause it feels right. Can you see me shine? True colors, do you feel
I will never be ordinary.
Introducing the all-new Motorola Edge 60 Fusion. Edge out the ordinary.
Hello, Moto. Next year, that'll be me.
Stop, gotta play, I drive to perfection, yeah, I bet you know the way I strive. I'm on the edge out of the ordinary, heading for the prize light. I'm in the stars and I know it cause it feels right. Can you see me shine? True colors, do you feel
I will never never be ordinary.
Introducing the all-new Motorola Edge 60 Fusion. Edge out the ordinary.
Hello, Moto. Next year, that'll be me.
Stop. Gotta play, I drive to perfection. Yeah, I bet you know the way I strive. I'm on the edge out of the ordinary, heading for the prize like I'm with the stars, and I know it 'cause it feels right. Can you see me shine? True colors, do you feel?
I will never be ordinary.
Introducing the all-new Motorola Edge 60 Fusion. Edge out the ordinary.
Hello, Moto.
Motorola Edge 60 Fusion. Edge out the ordinary.
Hi, here are the top headlines presented by Motorola. CM Omar calls for cabinet meeting to discuss Pahalgam attack. Supreme Court refuses to stay BPSC mains exam. Earthquake of magnitude 6.2 hits Turkey.
Presented by JK Tire Puncture Guard. Say goodbye to flat tire. Co-powered by the bold look of Kohler.
हमारा है। ये भी खुदाया।
किसान है, उसने उसको गोली मार दी।
यहाँ पे।
उसने बोला कि ये शायद मुस्लिम नहीं है, उसने उसको गोली मार दी।
Worst attack since Pulwama 2019.
थोड़ा बताइए हुआ। पति को मार दिया।
28 tourists killed in cold blood. Kashmir to Kochi, country in mourning. Terror bleeds India again. Masterminds sit across the border. How will India respond?
Good evening, hello and welcome to our special continuing coverage on the aftermath of that horrific massacre that's taken place in Pahalgam yesterday. How will the government of India respond will be our top focus, and we'll have several special guests joining us, including Farooq Abdullah. But first, let me bring you the big breaking news at this moment. The Cabinet Committee on Security, chaired by the Prime Minister, has just ended. Key security meet has lasted for nearly 2.5 hours. Amit Shah, Dr. Jai Shankar, Rajnath Singh, NSA, Ajit, Doval, all part of the meeting. The next step is a Ministry of External Affairs briefing that we expect in a short while from now. So we're getting the details that that meeting has been chaired by the Prime Minister. We're expecting a complete meeting, a complete briefing of the Ministry of External Affairs shortly. So, okay, Piyush Mishra now joins us from the Prime Minister's residence. Piyush, what are you picking up? What was the main focus in terms of how India is expected to respond for now to what happened in Pahalgam yesterday?
Well, Rajdeep, a crucial meeting has just concluded. Remember that the Cabinet Committee on Security meeting went on for 2.5 hours, and after that meeting, one-to-one meeting between PM Narendra Modi and Home Minister Amit Shah also went on for around 20 minutes. Home Minister Amit Shah has just left, and while he was leaving, he was also seen talking with someone on phone. So it was a crucial meeting which is now concluded. It's very short that Defence Minister Rajnath Singh would have briefed about the current situation, because he himself had held 3 hours meeting with the Defence Ministry officials, and remember that Home Minister Amit Shah was on his visit to Srinagar and then to Pahalgam. So Home Minister Amit Shah would have briefed about the current situation there in Jammu and Kashmir. The meeting has now concluded. All the members have now left. Home Minister Amit Shah has just left. We are also expecting a briefing by Ministry of External Affairs, and most likely a lot of things are going to get clear after the government's first response come in officially, where we are going to hear from a ministry as to how the government will now move ahead as far as its promise of giving befitting reply to Pakistan is concerned. So the meeting is now concluding. We are now waiting for government's response.
Okay, Piyush Mishra joining us. We'll wait to hear what the official response of the Ministry of External Affairs is. But let me bring you all the top developments on that big story through the day. Anger and grief over that ghastly terror attack that claimed 28 innocent lives near Pahalgam, the nation coming together to take a firm stand against terrorism. The top 10 developments: Home Minister Amit Shah visiting the Baisaran meadow in Pahalgam to assess the security situation there. Shah assuring the nation that those behind the attack would be brought to justice. He also met with the bereaved families, many of whom were angry and demanding questions of the government. Defence Minister Rajnath Singh has also vowed a befitting reply to those who committed the crime. He said those who planned the ghastly attack will also be punished. Let's go straight now to the Ministry of External Affairs briefing, which is taking place as we speak, to listen into India's formal response.
Ministry of External Affairs. I would also like to let you know that we have pressing engagements following this press briefing, so we'll not be in a position to take questions from you. We can do that subsequently. With that, I give the floor to Foreign Secretary. Sir, over to you.
Thank you, Randir. Good evening. Thank you all for your patience and for joining at this relatively late hour. I have some prepared remarks that I'll share with you, and as Randir said, due to some preoccupations, will not be able to take questions tonight. The Cabinet Committee on Security met this evening under the chairmanship of the Honorable Prime Minister. The CCS was briefed in detail on the terrorist attack on 22nd April 2025 in Pahalgam in Jammu and Kashmir, in which 25 Indians and 1 Nepali citizen were killed. A number of others sustained injuries. The CCS condemned the attack in the strongest terms and expressed its deepest condolences to the families of the victims and hoped for the early recovery of the injured. Strong expressions of support and solidarity have been received from many governments around the world, which have unequivocally condemned this terror attack. The CCS recorded its appreciation for such sentiments, which reflect zero tolerance for terrorism. In the briefing to the CCS, the cross-border linkages of the terrorist attack were brought out. It was noted that this attack came in the wake of the successful holding of the elections in the Union Territory and its steady progress towards economic growth and development. Recognizing the seriousness of this terrorist attack, the CCS decided upon the following measures. 1. The Indus Waters Treaty of 1960 will be held in abeyance with immediate effect until Pakistan credibly and irrevocably abjures its support for cross-border terrorism. 2. The integrated checkpost Atari will be closed with immediate effect. Those who have crossed over with valid endorsements may return through that route before 1 May 2025. 3. Pakistani nationals will not be permitted to travel to India under the SARC visa exemption scheme visas. Any SVAS visas issued in the past to Pakistani nationals are deemed cancelled. Any Pakistani national currently in India under SVAS visa has 48 hours to leave India. 4. The defense, military, naval and air advisors in the Pakistani High Commission in New Delhi are declared persona non grata. They have a week to leave India. India will be withdrawing its own defense, navy and air advisors from the Indian High Commission in Islamabad. These posts in the respective High Commissions are deemed annulled. 5 support staff of the service advisors will also be withdrawn from both High Commissions. 5. The overall strength of the High Commissions will be brought down to 30 from the present 55 through further reductions to be effected by 1st May 2025. The CCS reviewed the overall security situation and directed all forces to maintain high vigil. It resolved that the perpetrators of this attack will be brought to justice and their sponsors held to account. As with the recent extradition of Tahawur Rana, India will be unrelenting in the pursuit of those who have committed acts of terror or conspired to make them possible. Thank you very much.
Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. With that, we come to the closure of this press briefing. Thank you very much.
Okay, strong words there from the Indian Foreign Secretary. The Wagah-Atari border to be closed. All Pakistani nationals who've been given visas to India will have to leave the country by the 1st of May. And the Pakistani Embassy and the Indian High Commission in their respective countries will be downsized. And the Indus Water Treaty will be annulled for now. Pakistani Army advisors India persona non grata. So India's first steps largely diplomatic. Putting the diplomatic heat on Pakistan seems to be now step 1 that the Indian government has taken. We are going to process all of that. We'll be joined by expert diplomats to look at exactly what this means, what India has done. But the first response after the CCS is to take the appropriate diplomatic measures. Indus Water Treaty, visas, and indeed the Atari-Wagah border, all of them part of what the Indian government has done at the moment. So those are the first steps that have been taken by the Indian government, tough steps that have been taken in terms of diplomacy. But so far the government very cautious to keep the diplomatic steps that they've taken away from any possible security response and armed response that they will give. Joining me now is Gaurav Sawant. Gaurav, it appears that the first step is primarily diplomatic in terms of the response.
It indeed is, Rajdeep, and holding the Indus Water Treaty in abeyance is a very major signal of intent by the Narendra Modi government, and that's a signal that has been spoken of in the past but not actually actioned upon. When you say that Indus Water Treaty is held in abeyance, the signal that goes out to Pakistan is that water for Pakistan is not more important than blood of innocent Indians. And as you very well know, the 3 rivers in India is an upper riparian state, and water from the Indus from the Indus River and the 3 other rivers, very crucial for Punjab farmers, Pakistan Punjab farmers, and down the chain. So it's not that you're stopping that water, but you're holding the treaty in abeyance, is not sharing data, not sharing information. There are certain other clauses about the treaty which will be held in abeyance for now. withdrawing the defense attaches, Army, Navy and Air Force, withdrawing the military attaches, reducing staff strength at the High Commissions from 55 down to 30. Remember, it's 110 is the sanctioned strength. So first our High Commissioners were withdrawn, then certain other senior officers were withdrawn. But when you withdraw the naval attache, the air attache, the army military attache and the support staff, that's another signal that is being sent out. SARC visas, everyone's being told you go back, those visas stand annulled. So, you know, when people talk about Rajdeep, SARC should be revived. Narendra Modi government has anyway said SARC has been held to ransom by Pakistan state-sponsored radical Islamist terror, and unless that is addressed, there is no movement on SARC. So, that's another very major signal that the government sends out.
What about questions over alleged intelligence lapses, the security situation, the unified command situation on the ground? Have those issues been looked at, or that has been left for a later day? The first step is what we've seen today in terms of diplomatically sending out the message to Pakistan.
Rajdeep, that's a pertinent point that you raised, but when the Foreign Secretary briefs on the Cabinet, after the Cabinet Committee on Security, it's a message that's going out to the world. What we do internally within our country is something that perhaps the Home Minister in his briefing and meetings that he's held in Srinagar and with the Unified Command would be addressing at that level. But this is a much bigger thing because it's cross-border terror perpetrated by Pakistan. While we set our house in order internally, the message has to go out to that state sponsor of radical Islamist terror that they have to set their house in order. And it may take time, as the Foreign Secretary pointed out, Rajdeep, whereas a terrorist like Tahawwur Hussain Rana, when India made an effort and managed to extradite him and get him back to India, the other perpetrators, they would also go after, as we ensure, as the country ensures what is to be done internally is handled internally. But while we sort out a house in order, the external threat has to be dealt with in the form of Pakistan terror, Rajdeep.
We'll wait and see what next, what other steps India takes. Coercive diplomacy for now seems to be the first step that India has taken in the aftermath of that terror attack in Pahalgam. Thanks very much, Gaurav Sawant, for joining us with those details. Now, of course, all of this is putting more and more focus on the situation in the Kashmir Valley. Pakistan-sponsored terror has been something that Kashmir has had to live with for more than 3 decades now. Earlier today, I spoke in an exclusive interview to the Jammu and Kashmir National Conference Chief, Farooq Abdullah. His is the ruling party in Jammu and Kashmir. Listen in to this exclusive with Dr. Abdullah. And as the country grapples with grief and anger over the dastardly massacre by terrorists in Pahalgam, I'm joined by a very special guest, the president of the Jammu and Kashmir National Conference, the ruling party of the Union Territory of Jammu and Kashmir, and multiple times Chief Minister, Dr. Farooq Abdullah joins me. Appreciate your joining us, Dr. Farooq Abdullah, there from Jammu. Your first reactions to what happened yesterday, this dastardly attack?
I think it's the greatest tragedy we have faced after what happened and were martyred. And I think this is a disaster. We were thinking peace has returned, and great slogans are made that we have uprooted all these elements. I think those who said these things were completely unaware or uninformed that they still exist.
But the fact is, you're saying that these elements still exist. The truth of the matter, therefore, is, and you've seen it in your times as well, that Pakistan-sponsored terror continues to wreak havoc in Jammu and Kashmir over the years. And what are you therefore squarely blaming Pakistan for what happened in Pahalgam?
Rajdeep, we have faced this for past 40 years. We have continuously said that it's coming from there. Every time. We have never stopped saying that. We continue to say it. And we'll continue to say it till it's ended.
But who is accountable? Who is accountable? What is the solution? From the late 80s now to 2025, at various stages, Pakistan has bloodied the Kashmir Valley. How do you then tackle it? What is the solution, Dr. Abdullah?
That is the solution that government of India has to find. It is they who are responsible for the security and well-being of the people of this nation. It is for them to take the decisive steps to end this nasty things that are happening, and our complete state is suffering. How long do you think we'll continue to suffer?
But there was a sense, Dr. Abdullah, after the revocation of Article 370, that normalcy was returning to the Kashmir Valley. Major infrastructure projects were put in place. There was development. Elections took place last year with a relatively high turnout. Are you saying that this one incident pushes us back yet again? The government of India will say, look, we've actually made some tangible gains on the ground in the last few years.
Please. It is not this only Pahalgam incident. What about what happened in Bilawar? What happened in Jammu regions, in Rajouri, in Poonch?
But you
it's
see,
not only Pahalgam. It has been continuously happening.
Yes, Dr. Abdullah, but the truth of the matter is, let's be clear. You were chief minister for several years. At that stage, nothing could be resolved. Now you've got the Modi government. Earlier, you've had Vajpayee's government, Manmohan Singh's government. No individual government, whether in Srinagar or in Delhi, sir, has been able to find a silver bullet magic solution to end cross-border terrorism faced with a country like Pakistan that seems determined to bleed us in Jammu and Kashmir.
They have been bleeding us slowly and steadily. There's nothing new about it. For 40 years, they have been bleeding us. And they will continue to bleed us unless we start thinking and think positively of how to get rid of this.
What do you mean by think positively? In the past, you've been among the advocates for a dialogue with Pakistan. There are others who believe the time for dialogue is long over. Now you need to have some very concrete action, possibly even across the border. Surgical strikes have taken place. There was Balakot. What, according to you, is the positive action that needs to be taken?
Let me tell you, Ajit, I am not in command. And I'm not going to suggest anything to government of India. They don't need my suggestion. I think they are intelligent enough to decide themselves. But I'll definitely like to tell them, you can't have dual control in Kashmir. Whereas Lieutenant Governor controls security, controls police, he controls the unified command. The state government does not have any say in these things. Imagine, we are elected government. An elected government is never brought into discussions when security matters are discussed. How do you think you will resolve these problems unless you have the state government and the people to sit with you and decide how to get on?
I'm told today there was a security review meeting and Omar Abdullah was not invited for that meeting. Are you saying, therefore, that Omar Abdullah and the National Conference government bear no responsibility?
Deep. Last time when the Home Minister came, only a week ago, he had security meeting. Chief Minister was not in it. It's only this thing, when this time this happened, Chief Minister was called into the meeting. Let's be very straight about it.
But therefore, are you saying the Chief Minister bears no accountability, no responsibility?
It's not a question of responsibility. You have taken him out of the responsibility. It's not we. We still are fighting. We are still bleeding. But the first person who died today in that act was an ordinary horseman Saeed Hussein, poor fellow. He was the first man who jumped at this terrorist, tried to grab his gun, and lost his life. He said, this is not right, what you're doing. He had that courage and determination to fight these people. We're not running away from it. We are going to fight them.
But the truth of the matter is, these terrorists singled out Hindus, targeted them, and thereby want to drive a wedge between Hindus and Muslims. These were targeted killings, Dr. Abdullah.
Rajdeep, it's not today only. They've always done before also the same thing. They targeted Hindus to create a wedge, which has now been playing heavily in the country. Heavily. We see how much division is taking place between Hindus and Muslims because of Pakistan's actions.
Are you going to put all the blame only on Pakistan today? What about Kashmir itself? The fact is that there is a belief that there were some local Kashmiris possibly also involved in this operation.
Who says no? Who says no? Were they not in when it started in '89? There are people. There will be people. They have to be dealt with.
So you're saying there are elements within the valley who are patronized by Pakistan. There are elements across the border who have entered and bloodied the valley. You are calling for stern action against all of them. You will support any action that Narendra Modi government takes. Am I correct?
Rajdeep, we all want to live in peace and harmony and brotherhood. Take action which will try to bring that brotherhood back in our nation at all costs.
Yes, sir, but you will understand the anger and frustration of people because 35 years have elapsed from the time when you were Chief Minister and Kashmiri Pandits were driven out to today, what we've seen in Pahalgam. There have been repeated attempts made by Pakistan to bloody the soil of Kashmir, and yet nothing seems to change. That anger and frustration, surely you will share of the people of this country.
You know, today, for the first time after 35 years, whole Kashmir has risen up against this. Do you see this? It's a major change. Major change. They don't want anything to do with Pakistan. We are part of the nation called India, and we will remain part of this nation called India.
Do you see, therefore, anger and frustration building up in Kashmir against Pakistan and indeed all those who use the gun to resolve issues? You believe that Kashmir has reached a tipping point?
Sir, Rajdeep, haven't you seen the anger in the valley today? Have you ever seen this before? Have you ever seen this? There's a complete shift. And I'm proud of that shift.
Will it last? In your view, will it last? Will it be able to sustain itself?
It will last so long as we live in brotherhood and don't create further communal tension. This will last.
Do you have a message for the Pakistani army chief who only last week said Hindus and Muslims cannot live together and emphasized the two-nation theory? Do you have a message for General Mir today?
I would like to tell the general, we never accepted two-nation theory. God is creator of everyone. Whether he's a Hindu, he's a Muslim, he's a Sikh, he's a Christian, or he's a Buddhist or anything. He's a creator. You cannot divide people on the basis of religion. If religion was to be a division factor, then Bangladesh would never have been created.
What is your message to the tourists, sir? You will understand that tourists are fearful now. They are leaving the valley in droves. This was expected to be the big bumper tourist season in the Kashmir Valley. What will you tell those grief-stricken victims as well as those who have... Yes, go ahead.
We tell them, by not coming, you are going to win the battle that Pakistan is trying to win. Come in larger numbers so that we can tell them that you cannot deter us. This is our land, and we are going to come in herds here. Don't be afraid. We have to fight them. And by not coming, you are already given to Pakistan acts.
Sir, there are those who are calling today for ministerial resignations, that the Home Minister must be held accountable. There were intelligence lapses. What's your view? Should this be a moment to play politics, or is this a moment to stand united in grief and anger?
I think we should stand united and not try to put fingers at each other. Not. This is the moment when nation must stand together, as they stood together when Kargil war took place. We need that unity today. We need that understanding between each other. Hold each other's hand and show our enemy that we are not going to be defeated. We are not going to accept your hegemony. You know, I didn't give an interview to any media. I gave of this interview because you're one man in this country who stands for truth, who stands for brotherhood, who stands for unity of every man. That is why I gave you this interview, because I'm proud of you.
So
that you're not afraid to use your word.
Sir, my thoughts though today, I'm very kind, sir, but my thoughts today are with the victims, with the families, and with the people who have lost their near and dear ones, as I'm sure are your thoughts and prayers as well, Dr. Abdullah.
Absolutely, Rajdeep. I cannot tell you how much I didn't have the words. I can't even think that such a thing could happen to people who had gone for enjoyment and they had to meet that death. It just shook me. I'm still not normal. I don't think I'll be normal ever, what they have done.
Dr. Abdullah, I understand. I know that your pain and anguish, you told me this morning also, is genuine. You haven't slept all night. You said you were shaken by what's happened, as the nation has been. But as you rightly said, this is a moment also for collective resolve and to send out a firm message to those who try and divide us. Farooq Abdullah, for joining me here today.
We are not going to bow. That they should understand.
Yes, sir. Dr. Farooq Abdullah, thank you very much for joining me.
Thank you, Raji. Thank you.
Okay, my next guest is also a very special one. I'm joined by General V.P. Malik, former Chief of Army Staff. He was Chief of Army Staff when the Kargil operation took place. General Malik, thank you very much for joining us. As you can well understand, a lot of anger, grief after this horrific massacre in Pahalgam. What, according to you, is the right way to respond to what, by all accounts, is yet another example of Pakistan-sponsored terror targeting innocent civilians this time?
Good evening, Rajdeep. I think first thing we have to face some truths. The truth is that our Western neighbor, Pakistan, they have always been encouraging jihadi elements, anti-Indian attitude, and now also anti-Hindu attitude. You have covered Asim Munir's open public statement where he has said that two-nation theory has to stay, or he wants that, he believes in that, and also that Hindus and Muslims are totally apart. And now this kind of a thing, the attitude from the other side, the mindset is now getting aggravated, and it is encouraging the terrorist element, which the ISI has been harboring, supporting. So the truth is that we have to face these incidents, isolated terrorist attacks. They have been going on for last so many years, and they will probably continue to do so. Although we need to carry out deterrence, we need to also live with them. So that is the state of affairs today.
2 points coming from what you're saying. First, you're linking in a way the terror attack to what General Munir said last week. You almost seem to believe that this is General Munir directing these terrorists who targeted Hindus in this terror attack. So it is General Munir's mindset now being transplanted in these terrorists. Am I correct?
Yes, you are. And General Munir also controls Pakistan, as we all know. So he controls the ISI, and the ISI controls Lashkar-e-Taiba and all other terrorist outfits. So when he's sending an open message that Hindus are different to us, and so this time what you have seen is that people have tried to identify not as tourists but as Hindus, and then they have killed them.
So we come then to the question of the response. As we saw after Uri, there were surgical strikes. After Pulwama, we saw Balakot. But clearly, Pakistan does not seem to be deterred from sponsoring terror. So given what we've done in the past, how do we now go up a seeming escalator ladder to, in a way, send out a stronger message to Islamabad, to Rawalpindi?
Rajdeep, firstly, I have to emphasize that as a nation, we have to make use of all options and instruments that are available with the state, which means political, economic, diplomatic, and military. So we have to consider all those aspects when we are now thinking of taking action against Pakistan. But before that, let me also look at the protective measures. And those are, we have to investigate whether our unified command in J&K, is it functioning properly? Is it functioning effectively? Which means, what about the intelligence? Why we have not been able to gather any intelligence about these people who have come from across the border, or there are some overground workers who have helped them. So that is one. Second is deployment. Why have we not deployed adequate number of troops in these areas when we know that this is the tourist season and people will be going all over? Why only emphasis on Srinagar and Amarnath Yatra, or when the VIPs goes there? We should have also considered deployment of troops or policemen, whatever, in these areas, which apparently did not happen. So those are the protective measures which need to be investigated, which need to be assessed, and then effective measures have to be taken. That is the protection part of it. Now I come to the offensive part, the deterrence part of it. We cannot just do once in a while action like Balakot or surgical strike. Those have to be repeated whenever there is an action, whenever there is an activity from the other side, or whenever we consider that the red line has been crossed. We crossed the red line in when 26/11 incident took place. And I believe that today also we have crossed the red line. And therefore, some kind of a message, some kind of a strong, effective action has to be taken, whether it is against the Pakistani army establishment or jihadi elements and their infrastructure. Now, how we take it, again, it is a all-inclusive activity in which we have to Army, Navy, Air Force, and everybody else has to consider. It is not only Army alone or Navy alone or Air Force alone. You know, and this,
So what you're telling me is that this is a two-pronged approach in a way. One, fix accountability for lapses here on the ground in Jammu and Kashmir, and two, make sure that there is clear action, actionable taken against Pakistan for the manner in which they continue to harbor terrorists. Am I correct? Am I interpreting you correctly?
Yes, Rajdeep. Lapses, if they have occurred, people must be accountable for that. That is the protective part. And as far as the other part is concerned, you are right. All-inclusive approach to take some action against Pakistan perpetrators who are the mastermind.
But what would that, the question of course arises, as we've seen surgical strike, I repeat, surgical strikes took place, Balakot took place. It hasn't deterred the Pakistani state. This is a state, as General Munir's statement made very clear, which is obsessed with the idea of in some way bleeding India and trying to drive a wedge on this occasion between Hindus and Muslims in this country.
So therefore, you see, we are only trying to have some deterrent in this in place. And once, as I said earlier, that just one incident, one reaction or two reactions like Balakot and surgical strike, that is not good enough. Whenever something of this nature occurs, we should be quite prepared to launch our own offensive activity, proactive activity against Pakistani elements. And I think the time has now come for this. And mind you, even despite all that, you may not be able to eliminate counter cross-border terrorism. You will probably deter them, it might reduce, but I don't think you can totally eliminate that by taking these actions.
And you're confident that our armed forces have enough strength and resilience to take on whatever challenge may be offered by the other side of the border. Am I correct?
Yes. Armed forces are part of the state, and our nation state has that capacity, has that capability to cause harm on the other side whenever this kind of a deterrent is required. Deterrent action has to be taken.
Right. So proportionality, proportionate action to what we've seen in Pahalgam is necessary to send out a firm, unequivocal message to Pakistan. At the same time, lapses on the ground in Jammu and Kashmir need to be fixed. General Malik, for joining me and giving me your perspective. Appreciate you joining me. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
The military options that might exist, but the real key now is diplomacy. We've already seen a little while ago the government of India announcing a series of diplomatic measures against Pakistan. Will India's diplomatic strike work? Was it really, in the end, a glaring security and intelligence failure in Pahalgam that needs to be addressed? And who will be held accountable? And of course, how should India respond to Pakistan terror? Two special guests now joining me. Yashovardhan Azad is former Secretary, Security Special Director at the Intelligence Bureau. And Vivek Kaju is former Secretary, Ministry of External Affairs. Appreciate both of you joining us. I want first, Mr. Kaju, to you to respond to what you've just heard from the Ministry of External Affairs in terms of diplomatic measures being taken. No visas to Pakistani nationals, cancelling of the Indus Water Treaty, stop at Atari Wagah border. Do you believe these steps will work?
3 points. First, the Indus Waters Treaty being held in abeyance is unprecedented. Even during times of war, the IWT was not touched. I don't think it's going to have a practical manifestation immediately, but symbolically it's important because water is an important issue for Pakistan. So it is a signal to the Pakistanis. Second, the doors are being shut on the Pakistanis, but not entirely, because while the defense attaches have been removed, you would note that there was no mention that the weekly contact between the DGMOs has been suspended. I think that is a very, very crucial point, so that it is indicative that both sides, that the government of India wants some contact to be maintained between the armies. Third, as far as visas are concerned, again, it's part of closing the doors, the Atari border closing the doors. So this is the first step. I think the government needs to assuage public sentiment to some extent. So it has taken some of these steps, but that is not the real point. Just give me 1 second, Rajdeep. And that the point is that whenever there has, in the two previous cases, when India judged attacks to be unacceptable, it took kinetic action. Uri, Pulwama. I think this attack which should have been anticipated, because the Pakistanis made it abundantly clear after the Jafar Express attack, which they blamed India for, through that India had provoked the BLA to attack us. At that stage, the Pakistanis were quite clear, and I've written about this. So in this case, I think what we are trying to do is to do a holding action, but ultimately, because this is an unacceptable attack based on the past two precedents, I do not see how the public in India or public opinion in India will accept anything less than a kinetic action against the Pakistanis, the kind of kinetic action that the government will have to decide very, very carefully. But the precedents are there. And will the people be satisfied with what the Foreign Secretary announced today? I can assure you, no.
Okay. I'm going to come to the Balochistan point later because that's an interesting point. Has Pakistan retaliated for what they believe was Indian involvement in that train terror strike that the BLA pulled off in Balochistan? But Yashovardhan Azad, you've worked carefully with intelligence. In all of this, while the focus is on India's diplomatic strike, it's on in some way assuaging public sentiment. There are questions about accountability, about intelligence failures. Should those be asked today or not?
Well, you know, this is a regular exercise, the intelligence failures, who was accountable. But right now, it's a make and break situation, Rajdeep, that is going to be held in a routine manner. Today, the question is, in 1.5 days, we have been waffling about many things. I think clarity should be there in what should be done now. And I totally agree with you when you talk about the options straight away. Let me give you 3 straight options. Let me ask you, what is the benefit of ceasefire, which we are having since 2021? It has helped the Pakistani troops to move about 70 to 80,000 on the Afghan border. It has helped them to commit savagery against the Balochis by diverting a large part of the army over there. It has given them tremendous respite to be able to train and send properly and arm all these Lashkar-e-Taiba coverts, whether you call them TRF or something. How is it benefiting us? Earlier on, whenever there were cross-border violations, the BSF used to pound their posts across the border. It is time to finish this kind of this exercise, this fraud, only helping. That is number one. Number two, the cost should also be made very, very high in covert ways, which we should push further. And number three, NIA, after I'm sure with the security grid we have, will be able to catch these guys. And then we should inform every world capital about their complicity and then do an official attack. This is a time when the entire world is with you, except perhaps Turkey or China, maybe one odd country. And if you don't attack now, take out those 12 or 13, Lashkar-e-Taiba and JM hideouts openly. Tomorrow, I think we'll be in a very sad position.
Easier said than done, of course. That it is high risk, but you're saying that is a risk worth taking.
It's a risk.
Kaju, Vivek Kaju, you mentioned about your belief that this could have been a retaliation for what happened last month in Balochistan, the Pakistan army embarrassed and chafing at the bit. Do you believe, therefore, we should have been prepared for Pahalgam? Is that a message in a way that you're sending? There should have been a recognition that the Pakistan army would be up to mischief.
Rajdeep, I entirely agree with what was said earlier, that this is a time for national solidarity. This is not a time for exhuming either the recent or the remote past. We all have to stand as one. But since you've asked me this question, I wrote an article. It's on record.
I saw it.
So
are you convinced that there is a link between what happened in Balochistan, where the Pakistani army blamed India, and what has now happened? Is that what you're saying?
That is what I was afraid of. That is why I wrote that it is possible that in the foreseeable future, the Pakistanis would engineer or sponsor a terrorist attack against us. You've seen it. I also wrote in that article, as you would have noticed, that the government of India would have taken note of this. Our agencies would have taken note of it. And I made some suggestions of what we should do, including putting the Pakistanis on notice and putting world capitals informing world capital that if there is an escalation, that we've nothing to do with this BLA attack, but if there is an escalation from the Pakistan side, then it will be Pakistan's responsibility if the escalatory ladder is.
No, but how far? But that comes, here you've got Yashovardhan Azad saying we should be willing to go on an offensive. This is time for war in a way. Do you believe that that is possible? That's a realistic option between two nuclear neighbors?
Look, this is always a dilemma, but I do believe that under what is called the nuclear overhang, there is space for action. The Pakistanis, on the other hand, have always pressed the international community that it is much too dangerous for any kind of kinetic action because the escalatory ladder can be used or will be invoked. My point has always been that the first step on an escalatory ladder is a terrorist attack like the kind which took place in Pahalgam yesterday. The world, we have, unfortunately, after the Pulwama attack, while we announced a doctrine of preemption, we did not press that doctrine of preemption. We did not make the world aware that, listen, this is our doctrine now. I do believe that at the right time, today is the time for the nation to stand as one, to be behind the government, to be with them on whatever decision they take. And I do believe that Mr. Modi and the CCS will be left with no option but to take some form of kinetic action. And that, the nation must stand firm. But at the right time, we've got to make our doctrines known to the world. That is how major powers and a responsible power like India, a country which is the fifth largest economy, as we often say, on the path to being the third largest economy, behaves, conducts itself.
Okay, can I get Yashovardhan Azad then to give a final word? Yashovardhan Azad, do you believe that these are risks worth taking, that this is a moment, or should one, is this a mood for a gradual escalatory spiral? Today we've had a diplomatic strike, cancel the Indus water treaty, go up the escalatory ladder and see where it takes us. The Pakistanis are already denying any involvement.
Rajdeep, the savagery which has happened in Pahalgam is reminiscent of the Islamist hardline terrorist actions by the ISIS. The ISIS and these terrorist outfits will not understand your diplomatic parleys, will not understand your gradual calibrated response and things like that. It will appreciate a hard strike. Today the country is absolutely pulverized after what happened in the Mumbai attacks. Since then, we have never seen a carnage like this. If you don't respond now and you keep yourself, fearing the so-called nuclear blackmail, which is always behind your ear, Pakistan will always do it. But today is the time to strike. This is the way you can do it. Cut the ceasefire agreement. It doesn't help us in any way. Today, the world capitals are with you. This is an opportune time, and make it official and open. Rather not live with this kind of, regular attacks, especially of this kind, in which the nation is backing you and the international community.
We'll have much more with you and other guests in the days ahead, looking at specifics of how India should respond. Clearly, a red line is being drawn in the sand with what has happened in Pahalgam. But Vivek Kaju and Yashovardhan Azad, thank you very much for sharing your wisdom with me here today. At the end of the day, for all the hope of a response that is proportionate, the real grief is that of the 28 innocent lives lost in one of the deadliest terror attacks in recent times. The stories they hope to bring back as tourists from Kashmir, the enjoyment of joy of being in the verdant meadows of Pahalgam, are now shrouded in grief and silence. These are the stories of the victims of Pahalgam.
8 Indian civilians on a vacation with their family to Kashmir now return in coffins. Identified as Hindus, shot dead at point-blank range in Pakistan's sponsored radical Islamist terror attack. Among them, 3 newly married couples, now survived by young grieving widows. 26-year-old Lieutenant Vinay Narwal, an Indian Navy officer, got married only a week back and was on honeymoon with his wife. Posted in Kochi, he had joined the Navy just 2 years ago and was known among peers and superiors as a dedicated and promising officer.
क्या बोलते भेलपुरी खा रही थी, मेरा पति साइड में था, एक इंसान है, उसने उसको गोली मार दी। यहाँ पे उसने बोला कि शायद मुस्लिम नहीं है, उसने उसको गोली मार दी।
This heart-wrenching moment captured of his young widow sitting by Narwal's mortal remains has turned into a defining image of the Pahalgam carnage. Himanshi now returns home with her husband in a coffin. Shubham Dwivedi got married in February, and now his young widow heads home alone with her husband's coffin. Playing cards at a hotel in Kashmir. Soon these happy moments with the extended family turned to horror. Shubham was gunned down in front of his wife after terrorists identified him as a Hindu. Among the 3 dead from Karnataka was 47-year-old Manjunath Rao from Shimoga. Hours after enjoying a serene shikara ride on the Dal Lake, their visit to Pahalgam proved fatal. Manjunath's wife urged the terrorists to kill her too, and in turn received a mocking response from the armed jihadists. She was being spared to tell the government about this massacre. 28 dead, leaving behind widows and children who watched the men of their family targeted. A nightmare that India will never forget. Bureau Report, India Today.
Truly saddening images there. My take. It is 24 hours now since the horrific massacre in Pahalgam that claimed at least 28 innocent lives. There is grief, and yes, there is understandable rage. This is a wake-up call for all those who mistakenly thought that simply the removal of Article 370 had restored normalcy in the Kashmir Valley. Let's get this straight. Normalcy and cross-border terror cannot coexist. Fact is, Pakistan-sponsored Lashkar groups have got away with terror for too long with too few costs. The first step, therefore, must be to ensure that the foot soldiers and their patrons are brought to justice. How this is to be done is best left to our security agencies. This is not a time for political finger pointing, but accountability for lapses must be eventually fixed. Ministerial resignations will not end the menace of cross-border terror, nor will high-pitched rhetoric here in TV studios. What is needed is maturity, not recklessness. It is very easy for me to call for revenge in a TV studio. What is more difficult is to ensure that Pakistan doesn't succeed in its attempt to drive a wedge between Hindus and Muslims amongst each and every one of us. Our strength of this great country of India is in our unity in Kashmir and beyond in every corner of India. The message, therefore, to a rogue and dysfunctional Pakistani army state must be loud and clear. India's resolve to fight terror will not weaken. This fight cannot be waged by directing our ire at Indian Muslims or indeed at Kashmiri brothers and sisters, all of whom are speaking out strongly today against terrorists. This fight is against a country whose army chief used the most obnoxious jingoistic language only a few days ago while claiming Hindus and Muslims cannot live together. Well, General Munir, India is proof of religious coexistence. Pakistan is an example of how shielding terrorists enfeebles and weakens a nation beyond repair. The blood of our countrymen in Pahalgam will not go in vain. Jai Hind, Namaskar.
While covering news, there is no room for fluff. No distractions. No dodging the truth. No blanks, no misfires, just sharp, fearless journalism.
Every story, every debate, every question, straight to the point.
Next year, that'll be me.
Stop. Gotta play, I drive to perfection. Yeah, I bet you know the way I strive. I'm on the edge out of the ordinary, heading for the prize like boom, I'm in the stars, and I know it 'cause it feels right. Can you see me shine? True colors, do you feel?
I will never be ordinary.
Introducing the all-new Motorola Edge 60 Fusion. Edge out the ordinary.
Hello, Moto.
Motorola Edge 60 Fusion. Edge out the ordinary.
Hi, here are the top headlines presented by Motorola. CM Omar calls for cabinet meeting to discuss Pahalgam attack. Supreme Court refuses to stay BPSC mains exam. Earthquake of magnitude 6.2 hits Turkey.
Jio, watch free cricket.
Good evening, you watching India First. I'm Gaurav Sawant. Within 24 hours of the Pahalgam terror attack by Pakistan, state-sponsored radical Islamist terror, the Cabinet Committee on Security under the chairmanship of Prime Minister Narendra Modi has decided to keep the Indus water treaty between India and Pakistan in abeyance. The 1960 India-Pakistan Indus water treaty is being held in abeyance. This is a significant, though symbolic, message that India is sending out to Pakistan. Water for Pakistan is not more important than blood of innocent Indians that's repeatedly spilt by Pakistan. Whether it's the 1993 Mumbai blast, the 26/11 Mumbai terror attacks, or a series of other terror attacks including Pulwama, Pathankot, Gurdaspur, Udhampur, Nagrota, Samba, Katwa, and now in Pahalgam. Foreign Secretary Vikram Misri has announced a series of measures that India has decided to take, which includes further reducing the number of Pakistani diplomats, officials and staff at the Pakistan High Commission in India. So from the sanction strength of 110, which was already down to 55 after Pakistan's Pulwama terror attack and India's counter-strike at Balakot, which India called a preemptive strike, it's now going to further come down to just 30, just a skeletal staff of 30. And this includes sending back Pakistan's military attaché, air attaché and naval attaché. They've been declared persona non grata. They've been told, you pack your bags and leave for Pakistan, and India is withdrawing India's defense attaché, air attaché and naval attaché from Pakistan. Let me quickly list out the measures that Foreign Secretary Vikram Misri announced just a short while back. So begin with Indus water treaty to be held in abeyance with immediate effect. India, of course, wants Pakistan to credibly and irrevocably take action against India-centric terror, which Pakistan has never done. Then the integrated checkpost at Atari. And this is an important post for movement of diplomats from one country to the other, and also for some other emergency purposes. Now, this integrated checkpoint Atari will be closed with immediate effect. Those who've already crossed over with valid endorsement, with valid visas, now have to return by the 1st of May 2025. Pakistani nationals now will no longer be permitted to travel to India using that SARC visa exemption scheme or the SVES. Any SVES or SARC visa exemption scheme visas issued in the past are deemed cancelled forthwith. Any Pakistani national currently in India under the SVES visa has to go back to Pakistan in the next 48 hours. Very, very important step. Defense attaches declared persona non grata. Their staff also told to go back. These posts in the respective high commissions are now deemed annulled. 5 support staff of the service advisors also to be withdrawn by the high commissions on either side. So the overall strength, like we said, comes down to 30 from 55. Let's quickly listen into Foreign Secretary Vikram Misri before I get you more, not just on the steps taken, but the ramifications. And are these the only steps that India intends to take? Or is this just the beginning? This is just the signal of intent, and the real action will only follow after this. That remains to be seen. But listen in to Vikram Misri.
Recognizing the seriousness of this terrorist attack, the CCS decided upon the following measures. 1. The Indus Waters Treaty of 1960 will be held in abeyance with immediate effect until Pakistan credibly and irrevocably abjures its support for cross-border terrorism. 2. The integrated checkpost Atari will be closed with immediate effect. Those who have crossed over with valid endorsements may return through that route before 1 May 2025. 3. Pakistani nationals will not be permitted to travel to India under the SARC visa exemption scheme visas. Any SVAS visas issued in the past to Pakistani nationals are deemed cancelled. Any Pakistani national currently in India under SVES visa has 48 hours to leave India. 4. The Defence, Military, Naval and Air advisors in the Pakistani High Commission in New Delhi are declared persona non grata. They have a week to leave India. India will be withdrawing its own Defence, Navy and Air advisors from the Indian High Commission in Islamabad. These posts in the respective High Commissions are deemed annulled. 5 support staff of the service advisors will also be withdrawn from both High Commissions. The overall strength of the High Commissions will be brought down to 30 from the present 55 through further reductions to be effected by 1st May 2025. The CCS reviewed the overall security situation and directed all forces to maintain high vigil. It resolved that the perpetrators of this attack will be brought to justice and their sponsors held to account. As with the recent extradition of Tahawur Rana, India will be unrelenting in the pursuit of those who have committed acts of terror or conspired to make them possible.
And for benefit of viewers who are joining us, what does the Indus Water Treaty actually mean? What is the Indus Water Treaty? What does holding it abeyance mean? Is this symbolic? Is this just a signal of intent? So the Indus Water Treaty was signed in 1960 on the 19th of September. It was signed by then Prime Minister of India, Pandit Jawaharlal Nehru, and Ayub Khan on the Pakistani side. This was, of course, negotiated by the World Bank, and this was a very, very long negotiation for about a decade, 9 years to be precise. The treaty has 12 articles and 8 annexures. Now, what does this mean? The Indus Water Treaty talks about river water sharing between India and Pakistan, and predominantly the 5 rivers of Punjab, Satluj, Ravi, Beas, Chenab, Jhelum, and of course the Indus River. So India is to use the eastern rivers, Pakistan to use the western rivers. So what are the eastern rivers that are allocated to India, or the waters of the eastern river? Ravi, Beas and Satluj. So of the Punjab, Punjab, Panch, Pani, Nadiyon ka Pani. So Satluj, Ravi, Beas, Chenab, Jhelum. So Ravi, Beas and Satluj. India is to use water of these eastern rivers. Pakistan was allocated water of the western rivers, 80% by Pakistan, 20% by India, and that is Chenab, Jhelum and Indus. When the Indus Water Treaty stands suspended or in abeyance, what will be the impact on Pakistan? Now, when you say that it's in abeyance, it doesn't mean India will stop water right away, because if India has to stop water, where will that water go? A lot of infrastructure needs to be developed, but that's a signal of intent that India is sending out to Pakistan. India, of course, has run-of-the-river dams. Pakistan has also objected to that in the past, but it's lost the cases. Run-of-the-river dams means that you can generate electricity out of that water, but you cannot stop that water or divert that water. Impact on Pakistan. Should India even utilize the 20% that's authorized to India and officially allocated to India, even 20% which is done, we don't even do that. Pakistan gets much more. And yet Pakistan is water starved, because Pakistan doesn't believe in water management, or at least doesn't do it effectively. But in case India were to use the entire 20%, Pakistan would be in grave trouble. It threatens food security in Pakistan. It creates a severe water crisis in Pakistan. There already is one. Allows India to use water better, whether it's to generate electricity, divert that water, utilize it better in Punjab where it is required. And in Pakistan, a lot of their agricultural land, and this is Punjab, Pakistani part of Punjab's worst nightmare, a lot of their agricultural land could turn barren and create a massive environmental impact for Pakistan. And that's just one step.
India is saying if we were to hold or relook or seek to renegotiate the Indus Water Treaty, Pakistan would be in grave danger. Pakistan now has to decide they prefer terror or they want the water. Mir Farid joins me live from Pahalgam, ground zero of the terror attack that took place. Shashank Mattu is with me from the national capital, was at that press conference. Mir, to you first. The situation on ground right now, counter-terror measures we are told are being taken, but Kashmir, is it already unfortunately feeling the brunt? We are told there are large-scale cancellations of reservations, tourists leaving, and this would, Pakistan's actions would really adversely impact people in Kashmir.
Yes, in fact, Gaurav, since morning we're seeing cancellations, and in fact, from yesterday the exodus started. As soon as the news spread, those gory visuals went viral. People came to know about it, and one would fault them. There were families here, and they decided that the best possible measure right now was to go to safer zones. Some went to security force camps, some straight to Srinagar. There are still some who are here, but obviously they're waiting for the road to open, Srinagar-Jammu National Highway. So already the attack having a ripple effect, a damaging effect on Kashmir tourism as was expected. But as far as the countermeasures are concerned, they are still ongoing. We've been told that forest area is being scanned, and as we've been saying since yesterday, this is a multi-force, in fact, synergy, and they're going about it in a calculated manner. They're going from different directions, but overall, if you look at the counter-terror measures, you had an encounter in Kulgam where it's still going on, an infiltration bid negated in Uri, 2 infiltrators shot, dead ammunition recovered. Multiple operations are going on. So quite clearly after Home Minister's visit, he has given a free hand, and it's not just about Pahalgam, but Pan Valley, they have been told to improve security situation and finish the threat and ensure that there is no threat, especially
and perhaps
from
stop
the
working
TRF,
in
which right
silos,
now is
have better coordination between intelligence agencies, between security forces, not look for laurels, but for terrorists, and neutralize those terrorists. That is so desperately required so that we can save lives of our people killed by these radical Islamist terrorists. Shashank, you were there at that press conference. You heard the Foreign Secretary. In the government, what's the thinking? Are these the measures that we're taking, or is this just a crucial first step, Shashank?
I think at this point in time, Gaurav, the government of India, when we spoke to them, were very, very clear that the Indus Water Treaty is really the star of the show when it comes to these 5 measures that India has ordered, because Pakistan will understand how important this is. 80% of Pakistan's water comes from the Indus Water Basin. 90% of its agricultural output is sustained by the Indus Water Treaty. India is sending a very, very key message here. The treaty, as you rightly mentioned, was negotiated in 1960. It stood the test of time for 65 years until India decided to put it into abeyance. It's sending a very clear message to Pakistan that this is not business as usual. The ball is in your court. If you continue to follow these policies, we are ready to take steps that would have been considered unprecedented even just a couple of years ago. You are not dealing with the same India. Or the other steps that you're seeing, whether it's the cancellation of visas, the reduction in the diplomatic personnel, whether you're also talking about the closing of the Atari-Wagah border, India is sending a very is sending a message that, look, we just do not want to have the level of contacts, whether at the elite level or the popular level, that we once did with Pakistan. We do not want anything to do with you. That is the clear message that is being sent. So we can, number one, also, Gaurav, I also have to point out, when we were speaking to the government, they were very clear that we use this one word, abeyance. The treaty has been placed into abeyance because it could be revived. India is also very clearly saying that the treaty could be revived at some point in time if Pakistan reconsiders its policy on terrorism. So that is
that big message. Is India sending out that big message? Ambassador Rajiv Dogra, former top diplomat, joins me on the show, was a consul general in Karachi in Pakistan, knows the Pakistani mind well. Colonel Dinny joins me on the broadcast, somebody who's served on ground at the line of control and at the line of actual control. But Ambassador Dogra, your appreciation of, let's take this step by step, the Indus Water Treaty being held in abeyance. Now, is this a symbolic step? Is this a signal of intent? Does this satisfy people more domestically, or does it send out a clear message to Pakistan?
I'm glad you started with the Indus Water Treaty. In fact, my book, Where Borders Bleed, which was published 10 years back, had 2 chapters. One was on Article 370, where I strongly advocated that it be abolished. Second was on Indus Waters Treaty, where I wrote chapter and verse on how it was the most generous water treaty in the world and how it should be revoked. I'm glad the government has taken the first step in keeping it in abeyance as a warning to Pakistan, behave. But there's a background to Indus Waters Treaty.
Yes.
First, at the time in 1960 when it was signed, America was signing a treaty with Mexico where it was hardly giving a pittance of water to Mexico. But America was making sure that India gave the most generous water treaty to Pakistan, as its ambassador in Islamabad of that time wrote back to State Department that India is in big financial trouble. This is the time to teach Pandit Nehru rules of international behavior. So it was to punish India that Washington, through World Bank, made India sign that treaty. But now the wheel has turned full circle. Let me also recall what Jinnah said about sharing waters from India. This was before the partition. Both Jinnah and Nehru were there, and the British asked them as to what is your opinion. Nehru, of course, was generous, but Jinnah said, rather than take Hindu water, I would let Pakistan become a desert. So we have come to a point where if terrorism continues, I think not just keeping it in abeyance, we should revoke the Indus Waters Treaty, because nothing in the world obliges us to continue with this as long as terrorism continues.
You know, that's such a pertinent point you make. And, you know, I want to come back to you for more on Jinnah's point, but I also want to bring in Colonel Dini on the Pakistani mindset, which many in our country, unfortunately, fail to fathom, fail to understand. Colonel Dini, look at Jinnah's mindset. Muhammad Ali Jinnah lived in Bombay, enjoyed the best of India, wanted to be Prime Minister, carved out a separate country. That same hatred for Hindus from 1947, Jinnah's mind, I would rather let Pakistan become a desert than take Hindu water. This was Jinnah's mindset. And 2025, here that Mullah Asim Munir, who masquerades as the Pakistan Army chief, you know, 50 shades of Hafiz Saeed. I mean, that's the only way you can describe these Pakistanis, from perhaps Jinnah to Asim Munir, Colonel Dini. It's that same mindset. Services understand so much better, being you know, facing the brunt of it at the line of control for decades.
Oh, absolutely, Gaurav. There is no doubt that that mindset has not changed. That's what clearly was brought to the fore by General Asif Munir as recent as last 1 week before. So that is exactly the problem. Also, no, these people think that, you know, they can do anything with India and they can get away with it. That's the kind of mindset which they had right from 1947. You know, however hard you hit them, they just don't seem to, you know, learn any lesson. And this particular, you know, this particular step of at least suspending or keeping it in abeyance in the water treaty, I think it's a huge step. Precisely because I think this will definitely bring about the behavioral change what we keep on saying. Why I say so is it affects the common man in Pakistan. We already know that the Pakistan Army stature in Pakistan is absolutely down today. But the person who walks on the streets of Pakistan, he does not even wear the uniform, because that is the kind of you know, the kind of disrespect the common man has for Pakistan Army. Now, when this Indus Water Treaty gets, you know, the suspension will create problems for the common man. He will ask, why am I suffering this? For whom am I suffering this? If Pakistan Army has to be relevant, it should not be at our cost. It should not be at our cost. So then, then Pakistan Army will, you know, what we saw, what happened at the Corps Commander's residence. That is what is going to happen in the future, because these people will get behind Pakistan Army and teach them a lesson. And what we saw in the Corps Commander's house, what we didn't have to do anything. This will be done by the people of Pakistan to Pakistan Army.
But that's a pertinent point that you make. But will that actually happen, or is that, you know, a pipe dream? Because Imran Khan is already in jail. I'll come to Imran Khan's point in just a moment, because in Pakistan, they say, either Imran Khan will survive or Asim Munir will survive. And when he creates hatred towards India, then Asim Munir goes up that survival ladder more than Imran Khan, because then it becomes the question of Pakistan's survival. And Asim Munir, once again, instead of being the terrorist that he is, will be seen as the savior of Pakistanis. But I want to understand this from you, Ambassador Dogra, before I bring in Shashank and Mir into this conversation once again. I want to understand from you, Ambassador Dogra, what will be the impact on the Pakistani mind? Will there be an impact on ground just as yet, or will India have to create infrastructure for any impact on ground? Point one, and point two, on the mind of the Pakistani farmers or Pakistan, Punjab and in Karachi, what will be the impact?
Well, the impact will start once the waters stop flowing. Till then, the villagers in Pakistan is not affected. What the villagers and citizens of Sindh are most disturbed by are the news reports and actually action on ground by Pakistani Punjab government to build 5 further canals diverting Indus waters. So there's a big agitation going on. And in fact, Bhutto Jr. has threatened to walk out of the coalition if it continues. But there is big trouble in Pakistan about water sharing. So I don't think we have to continue to be generous at our expense. Let me give you another point in this Indus waters thing. We were so naive when this treaty was being signed that the chief negotiator from our side, Gulati, in fact, again, I mentioned it in Where Borders Bleed, he said, I made a huge blunder. I did not think that our population would increase or industries would come up in Punjab and Jammu and we would need more waters. So there was no provision for more waters. Can you think of another instance where we were so blind of our own needs? But let me make one more point, and that is the emphasis only on the diplomatic side of CCS meeting. In fact, there's a huge diplomatic, strategic message. If you read out Foreign Secretary's statement at the press meeting a couple of minutes back, in the end, he has a very, very strong message to Pakistan. That we will hit not just the perpetrators of terror, but also their masters, their sponsors. So I think that is the strategic message which people are missing and which people should keep their ears tuned to. The second strategic
or probably no, Ambassador. We were actually hoping to see that when we do, and we are very patient people because we've seen after Uri in 2016, after the attack at the Uri military base, it took the Indian Army 10 days to respond. But within 10 days, the surgical strike had been carried out. After Pulwama terror attack, it took the Army 12 days in 2019. The Air Force 12 days to carry out the Balakot airstrikes. So we saw that subtext. And we're waiting whether it takes a week, 10 days, a fortnight or longer for India to respond, because that is an action that we want to see on ground and not just hear words. But I also want to bring in Geeta Mohan, our Foreign Affairs editor, into this conversation. And Geeta, you're plugged into what's happening across the border. What's the impact? What's the buzz in the Pakistani media? What are you picking up on the Indus Water Treaty and on actions that Foreign Secretary Vikram Misri just announced?
Well, the Pakistani media, Gaurav, has now reports coming in citing sources that there is going to be reciprocity. Not understanding the fact that India unilaterally did announce reciprocity. They not only said that there's going to be downsizing of the Pakistan High Commission here, that they are going to downsize the Indian High Commission in Islamabad by withdrawing key critical officials and staff from the High Commission. Now, one thing, Pakistan can always say that, well, that doesn't really make a difference because there weren't any official